look at his own doctors, if you look at his own scientists, if you listen to what nurses, what medical providers say, they all say, and by the way, CEOs are saying it too. We can't reopen our economy until we strengthen our testing. Everybody's saying it. I mean, from CEOs to nurses. And so I think that's partly what you're seeing in those poll numbers that show Americans prefer Joe Biden to Donald Trump when it comes to handling the economy.
Yeah, and through all the chaos, as you know, President Trump has basically staked his presidency on a strong economy. It's where he always goes when he's in trouble. Look at the unemployment numbers, look at the stock market. As those have collapsed over the last couple of months, he no longer can hang his hat on that, and you're seeing some of that in those numbers. In terms of opening up the economy, that same NPR poll Mika was talking about asks whether it's a good or a bad idea to resume certain normal activities without further testing. 91% of Americans say it is a bad idea to allow people to attend sporting events. 85% agree schools should remain closed. 80% think restaurants should not allow customers to dine in. And 65% say it's a bad idea to allow people to return to work without testing, Mika.
Look, by the way, Mika, look, 85% think it's a bad idea to reopen schools. What was Donald Trump doing yesterday? Pushing to reopen schools.
There's such mixed messaging. Katty Kay, in the UK, it's very clear, and it's interesting that their prime minister has been through this, and perhaps sort of found the truth of it. It's not a virus that you can play around with.
Yeah, I mean, Boris Johnson went from being a kind of skeptic to some extent about this in early March when he was still bragging about the fact that he was going to shake people's hands, right? We've played that clip on the program before, and then ending up a month later in ICU and now begging the British population to stick with this because he can see the perils of opening up too soon. I mean, it's interesting, there's that NPR and the Pew poll. Even if you ask Americans who have lost their jobs, do they want to open up the economy precipitously, they still say no by a margin of 4-1. They realize the costs of this. And actually, there's a really good, I mean, there's a lot that America can learn because we're a little bit behind the curve from other countries. Germany opened up a week ago last Monday. In the space of 9 days of having loosened some restrictions, allowing a few more businesses to open, allowing some kids to go to school, their infection rate from the virus has already spiked up again. That's just in the space of 8 days. And I think that's a really salutary lesson for people about you can start the process of opening up, yeah, and everybody wants to. We're all going crazy. People need to get back to work. But there is this risk that that reinfection rate will go up again, and then you end up with more hotspots. And I think what governors are really trying to do around the country is get their infection rate so low that we're almost back at the kind of status quo ante of before this all started, so that then they can test and find out where the hotspots are and see what's happening. But we should be looking to other countries that are opening up now to see what experience they have.
You know, John Heilman, you look at those numbers from this poll, the NPR poll matches, a Pew poll matches, other polls that have been out that show an overwhelming majority of Americans think that their governors are doing the right thing or their governors are being responsible. I'd love to put that poll back up that shows 85% of Americans think it's a bad idea. And mark me as one of those Americans, even though I'm saying reopen the parks, let people walk on beaches, reopen public spaces, let people socially distance safely. Let's start figuring out a way to move towards reopening the economy. But reopening schools, 85% of Americans think this is a bad idea. And yet you have Donald Trump going out suggesting that schools reopen this year. You have the Attorney General of the United States of America. At the same time, Donald Trump puts out guidelines that he's already forgotten the guidelines that he put out. And so these not conservatives, they're idiots. These Trumpists who think that they're finding a way forward politically by attacking stay-at-home orders, they're the 10%. They're the 15%. They're in the minority. If they think this is how they're going to build the future of the Republican Party after Trump loses his fall, they are badly mistaken. And they can look at any polls, including Fox News polls.
Right. Well, I mean, there are two things to say, Joe, in those numbers, just to stay focused on them for a second, right? Look at the approval ratings of the governors in the states that have been hardest hit by this virus, who have had the most aggressive stay-at-home orders. Look at the approval ratings for Governor Cuomo, for Gretchen Whitmer, for Gavin Newsom, for Jay Inslee, and others, right? Take the top 10 states and take Florida out.
And
please,
Ohio.
For the purposes of this discussion.
And Ohio as well.
And Ohio and Mike DeWine. So take the top 10 states combination of hardest hit by the virus with tough stay-at-home orders. All of those governors are north of 60% approval rate. Many of them are north of 70%. Okay, so they all have 20 points on where Donald Trump currently stands in terms of just the basic thing of approved, disapproved, right? So that's point number one. And then your point about the polls about the schools, right? Overwhelmingly, if you ask parents long before this pandemic, and you said to a parent, do you agree, yes or no, with the statement that a school is a petri dish for virus in general? Schools are petri dishes. Kids are constantly giving each other. I mean, it's just the story of every fall and winter in America is kids playing with each other, snot on their nose, doing the stuff kids do. They all make each other sick. They all come home with illnesses. They all give their parents and their siblings. That's like the most normal thing in an American family. Every American family understands that the school is a petri dish. And so, of course, when you now have things living in the petri dish that can kill you, of course, parents are going to be like, I'm really not enjoying homeschooling my kids. It's really difficult for me. We all have cabin fever. Yes, all of those things are true. But do I want to send my child into a petri dish where one of the bugs that lives there could kill my kid or kill me? Of course, you're going to see numbers north of 80% that people are going to be most skeptical of this. Of all the things in the economy, I think you will see enduring poll numbers that will have parents most wary about opening up the schools. And so when Donald Trump says something like he said yesterday, you got to stop and think for a second, what polls are you looking at, buddy? Are you talking? Right. Can anybody on your political team read a poll? I don't want you to govern by poll, but right now, some of these polls are screaming messages that the president, if he's just concerned with his own political future, would do well to heed, because the American public is speaking pretty loud and clear on some of these pretty basic issues, and rightly.
Well, it's common sense. I mean, people want to be safe, and they follow the logic here.